Well, I started here in 1951.
1951.
Then I went away for 2 years and I came back in 1954.
Which is the year I started, I think. Yeah. Used to ride my bike from Ramsgate to come up here with the obligatory playing card, plasticized card with the peg in the back spoke. Yeah, so it sounded like a motorbike.
Yeah.
But there was also quite a big hill I used to come up from. And if I wasn't riding the bike up from Ramsgate, I used to get the electric trolley bus along Grand Parade up Bay Street. And Brian, where did you come from?
Bexley.
Bexley, so you walked it.
You walked?
I walked that way.
When we got here, as I said, we had a number of brothers. I still remember some of them fondly, some not so fondly.
There was some interesting. There was one man here who taught English, Brother Redmond. No, his name is Brother Kogarah, but his name, in actual fact, was Redmond D. Murphy, and his poetry was in the Australian Anthology of Verse.
Yes.
And he taught us English. And there's another guy here.
He was a great fan of Gerard Manley Hopkins.
And
I can still remember, nothing is as beautiful as spring when weeds and wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. And this, do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And he taught us Walter Mitty. Anyway, he was a good teacher, I thought.
He lived at Rockdale, interestingly.
Yes.
His old mother was not well, and he was allowed to go and live with her at Rockdale.
He used to get on his bike after school and go and have a few beers up at the Rockdale Club because we used to see him coming in. But we liked him. We liked Brother.
Yeah, we liked him. He never gave the cane very much.
No. And there was another one called Brother Rayful, who we all called Gus.
Yeah,
I never quite worked out why. He taught maths.
Okay.
Yeah,
and Latin.
And he used to wield the cane.
Yeah, he had a little one that he used to do like that.
Yes, yes.
What were class sizes like in those days?
We had something like 80 in our class. What did you have?
56 or thereabouts.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And there were 3 in the leaving certificate, or 5th year and 6th year. There were 3 different, distinct, graded student groups in there. We had colours in a gold. We were green. I don't know whatever that represented, but I think I was in the middle class. I remember one of my favourite teachers was Brother Thomas. He taught me geography and ancient history, and his habit was to sit. He never sat behind a desk. He never used the chalkboard once in the 2 years that he taught me. He used to sit on the front seat, and so he was right on top of you. He was right next door to me, and he used to watch. And if any kid started to doze off, he actually threw whatever book he had in his hand, and he had a fantastic aim. He'd go, conk, and it would hit him on the head. But you know what? In those days, we all laughed, or we laughed and we shut up. But
if it wasn't you, yeah.
It wasn't me. But he was a great teacher. I went and saw him at the Marist home up at Randwick a couple of times after he'd retired. But he had a very big influence on me. He was a terrific teacher. And Benildus was another one of my favourites, because both Brian and I, Brother Benildus, he was in charge of the cadets.
Yep.
Now, Brian was what were you, Brian?
The drum major. And before that I was the quartermaster sergeant.
And I was the regimental sergeant major.
All right.
The building's no longer there, but there was a building over there, and underneath at this end was where all the guns were kept.
Yes.
And we had lunch in there, basically. It was the lunchroom for the exclusive members of the cadets, and upstairs was the tuck shop.
Which was disgusting.
They used to sell something called a wimpy bar, which was baked beans and sausages in a roll that used to drip all over the place.
Oh.
But in those days, they did do some good things.
I don't remember anything good.
Well, yeah, sort of the Wimpies were a bit scary, I must say. And of course we had free milk delivered.
Oh, yes.
Free milk.
Free warm milk.
Oh, yeah. So what time of the day did you get the milk? Like, you've been sitting in the sun all morning by the time?
It was obligatory that it sat in the sun. And this was to improve the bones, of course.
Oh, yes, yes.
But our greatest joy was we used to collect the aluminium tops of these milk things. And I remember that on Empire Day, one year, what day of the year that would be?
It was in May.
They actually came out with the first coloured aluminium bottle top. It was the Union Jack on the bottle top, so that became a treasured item.
Yes.
Do you remember? We used to march into Colonel Bogey, didn't we?
Colonel Bogey,
that was the tune that was played.
I can't remember what it was, but the band had to get all geared up and stand out there. on parade.
Every morning.
Every morning, and I would bring the school to attention. None of the brothers used to walk around the background. I would say, "School attend!" And the entire school had to stand straight. And then Brother Lawrence or Brother Frederick, if we'd done something really scary, would come out and address the school. And Brother Edmund was also a sports master, would come up, and there would be school announcements made. Then I would say, and sort of like the school would turn left, and the band had started, and they'd all march off into the various classrooms.
We could actually do it here again.
But you know what? It worked, and the only problem is that I was the only one facing the school, and I would regularly go or make faces so that they'd get into trouble. Was it me? No. To some mischief in our school. I mean, it was, terrible. I remember it now, but we had a brother, I think he was a retired brother that we said the rosary with after lunch every day. And Brother Charles was sweet, and there wasn't a bone of aggression in his body. I think he wasn't really an academic teacher. He was carted in to do things like this. And we did all sorts of things. In those days they had a cord running on their cassock. Yeah. And he'd sort of like be rolling down the aisle as we sang the rosary, and somebody would pick up the cord and they'd get a thumbnail and they'd like that, and he'd go, "Ooh!" Or another time, remember those little black and orange stink beetles on citrus trees?
Yes.
Bring in matchboxes full of them, not me of course, and
open them,
I know, I was terrible, open them up, and they'd be all over the room, these stink beetles crawling there, and people trying to keep serious. It was like...
They still do that.
Oh good, I'm pleased.
Yeah.
They still do it today.
Can I tell you the worst thing that ever happened in the school? I'd say, well, two things that make me laugh now. One was, we were in that interchange period from ink, fountain ink, to biros, right? And every desk had a white ink well in it. It was made out of ceramic. Yeah. And of course, they're all, after this change over to biros and pencils, they got rid of all the ink wells. They're all boiled and they were put back in the desks. Now, for boys at that age, it was very tempting to work out, what the hell can we do with this inkwell? So we discovered something. The perfect barbecue. We used to fill them up, not me of course, with methylated spirits. And as you know, if you light methylated spirits, there's no flame. So then we got jaffas from the tuck shop, and we got a paper clip and we unwound it and we shoved it in the jaffa, and then we barbecued jaffas. Now that was all very well, except I think it was, well, I won't mention his name, but a student that's now very high up in Queensland as a public defender, he accidentally, I presume, he was roasting a jaffa during the rosary one day, or a maths class, I can't remember which one it was, and it leaked into the desk and the entire desk blew up. It became, well, he never did it again, let me tell you. So that was always a laugh, the naughtiness. The other thing is Brother Frederick.
What?
Brother Frederick was the headmaster after, I think you may have...
he came after me.
He came after you, well...
I had Brother Hochsmar.
Oh, you
Actually, we had
Frederick back a month ago.
Frederick is still around.
Yes.
He was feared at the school, and he taught me maths, which I failed miserably, I must say, and he was a stern figure, and he had the terrible habit of saying, not once, not twice, but hundreds of times, whenever he said anything in school, he'd say, "Now look now." So what happened is, the boys in my class had an ongoing competition to keep score of how many "now look nows." So every time he said "now look now," everybody would go down and do tick, "now look now," tick, and then somebody would go, "Bingo!" What? I don't think poor Brother Frederick ever realised. But
Lots of them didn't realise what was going on, because the inkwell reminded me, there's one man everyone disliked, Brother Ignatius.
That'd be him now. You can't get away from him, you see.